This is an instructional video on how to perform the modernized vehicle inspection on a Class A vehicle, or pre-trip inspection. This is different than the vehicle inspection from years past. Our video demonstrates exactly how the vehicle inspection has to be performed and exactly what you need to say during the inspection. Do not attempt to add or remove from this inspection, and definitely do not go to YouTube and watch other videos, or let your mechanic buddy help you. Remember that everything everyone else knows about the CDL test has changed. Our business is solely designed to help you pass this test, and we're the best at what we do. Watch this video as many times as it takes to understand everything and be ready to demonstrate when you meet us. Before we begin, let us explain how this inspection works. You will begin the inspection inside the cab, where you will inspect interior items and perform the brake tests. Remember, the final air brake test inside is an automatic fail item if not performed correctly. Once you're finished inside the cab, you will exit and go to the front of the truck. There you will inspect items, raise the hood, and complete an under-the-hood inspection that will migrate to the front axle. When you talk about the front axle, you're talking about every axle. There will be items you mention up front that apply to the rear axles, so be prepared. You will then move down the side of the truck, where after a couple of items, you'll inspect the coupling system items. After that, you'll inspect a few items on the trailer, and you will be complete. You will receive a pre-trip inspection check sheet to use if you need. It is important to remember that when you enter and exit the cab on all of our vehicles during any part of the test, use 3 points of contact facing the vehicle and step in and out. Do not jump out of the truck and do not step out facing away. This is an automatic failure on the CDL test. Remember, for the test, you must name parts and mention the majority of the criteria for each item to receive credit. You don't have to be perfect, but do your best. First, safely enter the cab using 3 points of contact facing the truck. Before you do anything else, put on your seatbelt. We will now perform a safe start of the truck. You do this by pressing the clutch to the floor and making sure the truck is in neutral. If you're in an automatic, put your foot on the brake while starting. Now turn the key and start the truck. When you start the truck, check for the ABS light on the dash to make sure it comes on and goes off. Also, if your trailer has an ABS light on the driver's rear corner, make sure that light goes off. These indicate the ABS system is working. Now inspect your emergency equipment. There are 3 reflective triangles: spare fuses or circuit breakers, and a mounted and charged fire extinguisher. Check your windshield to make sure it is clean with no damage or stickers. The side mirrors are clean and adjusted. The backup camera is clean and works properly. Now inspect your dash indicators. Your left turn signal is working properly. Your right turn signal is working properly. Your 4-way flashers are working properly. Your high beam indicator is working properly. Check your depth gauge to make sure there is no low-level alarm light. Inspect your horns. You have to activate whatever horns are equipped on the vehicle. The windshield wiper arms and blades are secure, and the wipers operate smooth on the glass. Activate your washer fluid and mention that it works properly. Turn on your heater and defroster to make sure that both work properly. Feel for air both from the dash and floor. Now it is time for your brake tests. You have 3 brake tests. First, the tug test. To test the truck parking brake, leave the yellow button out and push in the red button. In a manual vehicle, you will clutch and shift into a lower gear. In an automatic, you will place the vehicle in drive. Let off the clutch gently and feel for a slight tug. Do not try to force the truck to move. You only need to demonstrate the brakes hold. Once you feel a slight tug, stop. To test the trailer brakes, push in the yellow button and make sure the red button is pulled out. Repeat the process. Let off the clutch gently and feel for a slight tug. The next test is the rolling or service brake test. With both buttons pushed in, place the truck in a low gear or drive and roll forward no less than 10 feet with your hands barely holding the steering wheel. If in a manual, press the clutch and then press on the foot brake gently. You are checking for any steering wheel pull to the left or right, making sure the brakes are working correctly. The last brake test is the air brake test. This test has 4 parts, and all of them must be completed exactly as demonstrated. Any variation from this method as shown will result in an automatic failure of your vehicle inspection. Make sure both brake buttons are pushed in before you begin. The first part of this test is the air gauge and governor cutout. You will rev the truck slightly and build air pressure. Tell the examiner you're checking the air gauge and that approximately 120 to 140 psi, the air governor will cut out. You will hear an audible pop of the air governor. For this test, you have to say the air pressure and the governor pops, and the governor has to pop. If you don't hear a pop, pump the brakes down to approximately 90 psi and repeat this part of the test. Once the air governor has popped, you will now perform the leak down portion of the test. Both brake buttons must be pushed in. You must have at least 100 psi of air pressure, and the engine has to be off, but the key and ignition in the on position. Fully apply the foot brake and hold it down. Tell the examiner that you are checking for no more than 3 psi air leak in a Class B or 4 psi air leak in a Class A truck in 1 minute. Do not take your foot off the brake until the examiner tells you to do so, or 1 minute has passed. Next, you'll check for alarms. Pump the foot brake and lower your air pressure. Tell the examiner that you are pumping your brakes down and your low air alarm will come on before 55 psi. The last part of the brake tests are the buttons. Remember, you had both your buttons in when we started, and that has to continue to be the case here. You will now keep pumping your foot brake until your brake pressure is between 20 and 45 psi, and both of your brake buttons will pop out, which will set your brakes. Remember, do not grab your buttons. Make sure they pop out on their own. If there was any part of that test that you're not sure of, you can restart the brake test. You don't have to repeat the tug test or rolling test. Again, this test is something you must do exactly correct, so be careful. Once you've completed the brake test, tell the examiner you have completed the in-cab portion of the test. Before you exit, ask the examiner if they will assist you in performing an external light check. You would check the following lights: clearance lamps, headlights high and low beam, left and right turn signals, four-way flashers, brake lights and tail lights. You will now exit the cab using 3 points of contact and face the vehicle. The next portion of the vehicle inspection starts at the front of the truck. Stand in front of the truck and tell the examiner that you are checking the truck to see if it is leaning to ensure the suspension system has no damage. Check all lights, lens covers, and reflective items. None of the lens covers are broken. All lights and reflectors are the proper color and are not damaged or missing. Raise the hood. The oil, coolant, and power steering fluids are all at the proper level. You must point to each dipstick and say the fluid is between the add and fill mark. There are no fluid or air leaks from the engine or other systems. The steering box is secure and not leaking. The steering hose and connections are not cracked, worn, leaking, and all secure. The steering system has no missing nuts, bolts, or cotter keys. All rods, arms, and links from the gearbox to the wheel are in place and not damaged or loose. The spring mounts are not damaged or have missing parts. The leaf springs are not missing, shifted, or cracked. The U-bolts are in place and not loose or damaged. The shock is secure and not damaged or leaking. The brake hose is not cracked, worn, or frayed and not leaking. All fittings are secure. There is no oil or grease on the brake linings or pads that could affect braking. The tires have 4 30 seconds minimum tread on the steer tires, 2 30 seconds minimum tread on all other axles, checked with a depth gauge. All tires are inflated to at least 100 psi, checked with a gauge. All valve stems are in place. There are no cuts or exposed tread plies. There are no abrasions, bulges, or cuts in the sidewalls. The rims are not damaged and have no welds, and the stud holes are not elongated. All lug nuts are present. There are no loose lug nuts, shiny threads, or rust trails, and there are no broken studs. Now we're inspecting the side of the vehicle. Check all lights, lenses, and reflectors on the side of the vehicle. None of the lens covers are broken. All lights and reflectors are the proper color and not damaged or missing. The mirrors on the outside are not damaged, and the brackets are not bent. The batteries are secure. All the connections are tight with no excessive corrosion. Remember, some trucks have battery boxes mounted on the frame, and some trucks have batteries underneath the cab. You may have to open the door to locate the battery. If there's a battery door or cover, it is secure. All electrical lines are secure. All tanks, fuel and DEF, are secure, with no leaks, and the caps are secure. Fuel lines are secure and not leaking. The frame on the truck has no cracks, broken welds, or any other damage. On the rear axle, inspect your dual tires to ensure there are no mismatched size tires. Now we're inspecting the coupling system. Check the air and electrical lines and connectors to make sure all ends are seated and secured, free of damage and locked into place. The lines are not cut, cracked, spliced, taped, or worn. There are no air leaks in the coupling area. The fifth wheel skid plate and apron have no cracks, breaks, or excessive wear, and are both lubricated. The trailer is laying flat on the fifth wheel with no space or gap. The release arm is locked in the transit position. The locking jaws are wrapped around the kingpin, and the kingpin is not bent. Finally, we're inspecting the trailer. The landing gear has no damage and is fully raised, and there's no missing parts. The crank handle is secure. There's proper clearance from the rear of tractor to the landing gear to make turns. The trailer frame has no cracks, Broken welds in the trailer floor has no damage. All lights, lens covers, and reflective items on the side and rear of the trailer are in place. None of the lens covers are broken. All lights and reflectors are the proper color and not damaged or missing. There is reflective tape down the sides and the rear of the trailer. Now you've completed the vehicle inspection. Remember, it is required to study these videos before you arrive, and it's a good idea to watch them several times to be fully prepared for your behind-the-wheel training.